In the headlines, President Park Geun-hye presses Pyongyang for sincere talks and asks ASEM leaders to support South Korea's unification efforts. The Japanese Prime Minister's ritual offering to the controversial Yasukuni War Shrine sparks criticism from South Korea and China. And facing criticism against the U.S. response to Ebola, U.S. President Barack Obama considers appointing a single person to lead the administration's fight against the virus. Happy Friday, everyone. Coming to you live from Seoul, I am Kang Chery. President Park Geun-hye, attending this week's Asia-Europe meeting in Italy, has laid out Seoul's unification policies and other issues concerning the Korean peninsula. She also sought support for her vision to create a peace park in Korea's demilitarized zone. ARIRANG's presidential office correspondent Choi You-sun reports.
Highlighting North Korea as the nexus for Asia and Europe, President Park Geun-hye asked leaders from the two continents to support South Korea's efforts to achieve peaceful unification on the peninsula. On the second day of the Asia-Europe Meeting Summit in Milan, President Park talked about her government's efforts to resolve the North's nuclear issue and to lay the foundation for unification, such as reviving inter-Korean dialogue. But referring to Pyongyang's repeated cycle of conciliatory gestures and then provocative behavior, the South Korean president said meaningful change in the North can be made if only the ASEM members speak with one voice. She called on the member nations to urge the regime to sincerely resolve both the nuclear and human rights issues in return for international aid and investments. President Park then promoted her vision to establish an ecological peace park in the peninsula's demilitarized zone to place the two Koreas on a path to reconciliation and peace. And that, the president said, would also resolve security threats across Northeast Asia and send a message of peace to the world. President Park will now head to Rome for the start of her official visit to Italy. There she will seek support for her vision of a creative economy in converging IT with culture and other sectors. The Korean president will also visit Pope Francis at the Vatican. Choi You-sun, ARIRANG News, Milan.
And on the sidelines of the ASEM meeting, South Korea and China reaffirmed their shared stance that they will never tolerate North Korea's nuclear program. This was the agreement between South Korean President Park Geun-hye and Chinese Premier Li Keqiang during a one-on-one meeting in Milan. The two leaders also agreed to work towards disarming Pyongyang of its nuclear weapons. Seoul's presidential office told reporters that Li Keqiang promised that Beijing will play a constructive role in restoring stability on the Korean peninsula and realizing a peaceful unification. The Chinese premier is also said to have mentioned the military talks held on Wednesday between the two Koreas, saying it held great significance, adding that China wants to see inter-Korean ties improve. And about that military meeting held on Wednesday between the two Koreas, reports coming out of the two Koreas after the talks have not been very optimistic, and with the Pyongyang still not answering Seoul's proposal for a separate high-level meeting at the end of this month, watchers are wondering whether the meeting will take place at all. Connie Kim tells us more.
Inter-Korean relations seem to be on the right foot following a surprise visit to South Korea by a high-level North Korean delegation earlier this month. But Pyongyang's criticism of Seoul's attitude before and during Wednesday's military talks is eroding hope the two sides could forge better ties. North Korea has lashed out at South Korea for rejecting its suggestions on ways to improve inter-Korean ties after they exchanged fire across the border. The North Korea Central News Agency reported Thursday that North Korean officials' proposals about stopping vessels crossing the sensitive maritime border and preventing the flying of anti-Pyongyang leaflets fell on deaf ears during talks earlier this week. The report also bashed Seoul for being reluctant to discuss urgent issues. Following the two Koreas' exchange of fire across a disputed maritime border last week, Pyongyang says it sent 3 letters to South Korea before Seoul agreed to sit down for talks. Also lashing out at the South for sending a lower-level delegation than it sent for Wednesday's talks, Pyongyang accused Seoul of only wanting to discuss the main agendas at planned high-level political talks. Regarding Pyongyang's criticism that Seoul called for closed-door discussions, South Korea's defense ministry stressed the North previously accepted Seoul's offer that the military talks be held discreetly. Seoul said Wednesday's meeting went nowhere, but it has expressed hope about making a breakthrough at the political talks. Earlier this week, Seoul suggested holding that round of talks on October 30th, but the North has yet to respond to the proposal. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
North Korean leader Kim Jongun is back in the public eye again. North Korea's state-run Korean Central News Agency reports today that Kim inspected a newly built apartment complex in central Pyongyang. It was not indicated when the tour took place, but Kim is shown walking with a cane, just like in the images released earlier in the week. This is the second time that he has appeared in reports after a long absence of about 40 days, during which rumors and speculation mounted about possible health problems and even a coup in the regime. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has sent a ritual offering to a controversial war shrine, and this has surely sparked criticism both from South Korea and China. But this could also mean that he's not planning to visit the shrine himself, as he's trying to set up meetings with his counterparts in Seoul and Beijing next month. Hwang Sung-hee reports.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe sent a ritual offering to the Yasukuni Shrine in Tokyo on Friday, while dozens of lawmakers paid their respects, marking the start of an annual autumn festival that runs through Monday. The Yasukuni Shrine honors 14 Class A war criminals along with millions of war dead. Visits there by Japanese leaders in the past have angered Korea and China, former victims of Tokyo's past militarism.
I am aware of the fact that the Prime Minister has donated a ritual offering, but this is an act of an individual and not something I think the government should comment on.
Abe, who outraged Seoul and Beijing with a visit to Yasukuni last December, has refrained from making another pilgrimage in consideration of mending ties with neighboring countries. Despite having traveled to over 50 countries since taking office, Abe has not held summit talks with the leaders of Korea or China. He has been trying to set up talks with his Korean and Chinese counterparts at the APEC summit in Beijing next month. Expressing regret over Friday's offering, Seoul's foreign ministry reiterated that Japan must acknowledge its wartime atrocities.
Japan must not lock itself up in its dark past, but advance towards a bright future through a sincere acknowledgement of history.
But even if Abe stays away from the controversial sites, eyes will be trained on his cabinet. Japanese Internal Affairs Minister Sanae Takaichi suggested this week that she will visit the shrine at some point during the 4-day festival. Hwang Sung-hee, ARIRANG News.
And back here in Korea, ruling party leader Kim Moosung's comments about possible constitutional reforms have sparked backlash in political circles. This after President Park Geun-hye, who had spoken about changing Korea's presidential system to allow for a second term in office, even said that politicians need to think about revitalizing the Korean flagging economy first. Kim Min-ji reports.
Constitutional reform has become a political hot potato despite President Park Geun-hye's appeal to politicians to refrain from arguing over the issue, at least until the economy is back on a normal growth track.
장기간 표류하던 국회가 정상화돼서 이제 민생 법안과 경제 살리기에 주력해야 하는데 개헌 논의 등 다른 곳으로 국가 역량을 분산시킬 경우 또 다른 경제의 블랙홀을 유발시킬 수 있습니다.
The chief of the president's own ruling Saenuri party, however, has touched off a heated debate over the constitutional revision. Wrapping up his 4-day visit to China on Thursday, Kim Moosung told reporters that now is the time for a discussion on the matter and that he expected an outpouring of debate once the regular session of the National Assembly ends in December. But on Friday, Kim apologized for what he called a mistake.
I shouldn't have commented on such a sensitive issue. I apologize for my mistake. I also send my apologies to the president.
Kim also clarified that he hopes there will be no debate on the issue within his party before the end of the parliamentary session. If and when they happen, the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy will be ready. The party said that Kim's apology shows the need for the current power structure to be fixed. They say the current system is obsolete and that a majority of lawmakers from the ruling and opposition parties are supportive of a revision. Key opposition lawmakers have also called for the establishment of a special committee at the National Assembly to start the process. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
For the latest in news that impacts Korea and the world, join Kang Chery for a lively half hour that covers politics, business, international news, and much more. Live at 8 every weeknight on ARIRANG TV.
Human Rights Council headquarters in Geneva on Thursday, finding ways to persuade. Korea's benchmark Kospi dropped to the 1900-point mark, a 3-month low on this Friday. Foreign investors mostly led the day's sell-off with big declines in heavyweights such as Samsung Electronics and Hyundai Motor weighing on the Seoul bourse. Analysts cited weak profit forecasts for Korean companies, instability in the Eurozone, and capital flow into the U.S. amid anticipation of the Fed's rate hike in the coming months. Korea's Finance Minister Choi You-sun says he supports recent moves to gradually raise the country's minimum wage to a quote-unquote appropriate level. His comments came during a parliamentary audit session on this Friday, although he did not elaborate on what he thought an appropriate level might be. Minister Choi did express some reservations, though, saying that a forced hike in the minimum wage could burden businesses and, in turn, result in job cuts. Korea's minimum wage currently stands at around $4.80, and the government plans to raise it to $5.20 next year. The highest international decision-making body in IT and telecom policies begins its biggest conference next Monday right here in Korea. The delegates have already started arriving from around the world, and our Song Ji-sun takes a look at what's on their agenda.
Over the weekend, some 3,000 government delegates, including 150 ministers and vice ministers of ICT, will gather at Korea's southern port city of Busan for this year's ITU Plenipotentiary Conference. Its main purpose is setting up global standards in telecommunications and related technologies, but its role in recent years has expanded with a goal of narrowing the information gap between nations through the sharing of ICT policy experience to set a common vision for the future. A day before the official kickoff of the 3-week conference, the annual ICT ministerial meeting will be held at Busan's APEC House under the theme, The Future Role of ICT and Sustainable Development with Inclusive ICTs. On Sunday, the Busan Declaration will be announced, embracing goals ranging from growth, inclusiveness, and sustainability to innovation and partnership. Seoul also seeks to use this opportunity to promote its creative economy models and showcase its latest technologies in the field. Korea's major telecom and handset makers will reveal their advanced 5G technologies, while small and mid-sized companies will be exhibiting their ideas and products at multiple expos held throughout the 3-week conference. Song Ji-sun, ARIRANG News.
If you're looking for ways to fight off the effects of aging, you might want to cut the fizzy drinks out of your diet. In a report published in the American Journal of Public Health, researchers at the University of California, San Francisco found that drinking one regular 350 milliliter can of soda a day is associated with over 4.5 years of biological aging, which is comparable to the aging effects of smoking. And if that's not enough to persuade you to cut down on soda, the sugary beverages have also been linked to obesity, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease. And shifting gears to the cultural front, if you're looking for something to do this weekend here in Seoul, there is one performance that might interest you. The Korean National Ballet takes a new spin on a classical piece of music. Our Park Geun-hye gives us a sneak peek.
Unlike other classical pieces, this modern ballet doesn't have characters or a plot. The 40-minute performance attempts to visualize every note of Beethoven's Symphony No. 7, a masterpiece of classical music that's best known for its lively, dance-like rhythms and festive motifs. In a perfect conversation between music and dance, the movements of the dancers capture the joy, rapture, and sensibility of Beethoven's symphony. The ballet was choreographed by late German dancer Uwe Schwartz and premiered in 1991 by the Stuttgart Ballet, the very place that artistic director of Korea's National Ballet, Kang Chery, has danced for nearly 3 decades.
This kind of the pieces, one is neoclassic, still with the point shoes, very difficult technique, and then one is contemporary. Until now, I think they haven't done yet this kind of pieces as a ballet dancer. One is beautiful, it's mathematic, Uwe Schwartz piece, and the musicality is so unique, and the Rise of Spring is so powerful.
Kang hopes the Korean premiere of the ballet will benefit both dancers and audiences to help them appreciate new interpretations of the genre. The performance will run through this Sunday at Seoul Arts Center. Park Geun-hye, ARIRANG News.
Rescue teams in the Himalayas are continuing their search for possible survivors after a massive blizzard hit the mountain range earlier this week. And for more, we turn to Paul Lee at the News Center. Paul, what's the current situation on this rescue operation?
Well, local officials say dozens of people were rescued on Friday. However, dozens more are still believed to be stranded in the deep snow. Improving weather conditions have allowed helicopters and troops to expand the search area. But with the death toll climbing, this disaster, the second of its kind this year, is on its way to becoming the worst mountaineering accident in recent history. Our Jongun takes us there.
The rescue operation in Nepal continues for scores of trekkers remain unaccounted for after deadly blizzards and avalanches hit the popular Annapurna circuit earlier in the week. Mountain rescue crews and helicopters are scouring hiking trails in the Himalayas, searching for survivors of the severe snowstorm. At least 29 have been confirmed killed, including hikers from Israel, Canada, India, and Poland.
We were on a trip and around Annapurna, heavy snowing and very horrible storm.
The Trekking Agencies Association of Nepal said more than 70 people are missing. Rescue workers say some may have already left the area but simply lost contact due to poor communication links. Some 50 South Korean climbers who lost contact with authorities earlier are reported to be safe inside their cabins.
As you know, there is no reception in many places in Nepal at the moment, so we don't know where is the other people. But we're sure that everything is okay.
However, with so many bodies presumed to be buried under the snow, authorities warn the death toll could very well rise. The unusual snowstorms in the region appear to have been triggered by the remnants of Cyclone Hot, which wreaked havoc in India last week.
손정인, 아리랑 뉴스.
And shifting to the latest on the Ebola crisis, UN Secretary General Park Geun-hye has called on the international community once again for more money to help fight the outbreak in West Africa. This urgent appeal comes less than a day after world leaders really criticized global efforts against Ebola. So what did Mr. Ban have to say to outline his announcement?
Well, the UN chief stressed that it was time for countries to step up, especially the ones that have the means to tackle this health emergency. He said a trust fund that he launched last month had fallen short of its goal of $900 million. This as the US and the UK are leading the way in containing the spread of the virus. Our Shin Se-min has more.
Global efforts to stop the spread of Ebola have been ratcheted up. Nearly 100 British Army medics landed in Sierra Leone on Thursday to treat healthcare workers who have contracted the virus. They have joined 40 British soldiers already stationed there, and some 750 additional troops will be deployed in the coming months. More help from the U.S. is also on the way. U.S. President Barack Obama issued an executive order on Thursday that will allow for National Guard and reserve forces to be deployed to West Africa. While their potential role has not yet been identified, the first troops to arrive are expected to help build 17 Ebola treatment centers with 100 beds apiece. Inside the United States, the White House has rejected calls from Republican lawmakers to impose a travel ban to the U.S. from Ebola-stricken countries. The Obama administration said such a move could prove counterproductive, making it harder to screen potential cases. As for the 2 confirmed cases in the United States, Nina Pham, the first person to contract Ebola on U.S. soil, has been transferred from Dallas to a federal hospital outside Washington, D.C. for treatment. Trying to quell public concerns, health authorities insist there is virtually no risk to Americans beyond the medical workers who are involved in treating Ebola victims and people who have been to West Africa recently. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG NEWS.
And turning now to Hong Kong, Paul, traffic has returned to the streets in the Mong Kok area after police cleared out pro-democracy demonstrators on this Friday. Did we see any confrontations during this latest police raid?
Well, it appears the situation remains peaceful, albeit tense, between the two sides. Most reports say police were met with little resistance from demonstrators following days of violent clashes at other main protest sites. Riot police tore down barricades and used cranes to clear out tents and other items scattered along the roads, with traffic reopening this morning. It marks another major setback for the pro-democracy movement as the number of supporters have dwindled over the past week. Those that have stayed say they won't give up so easily.
We come here peacefully and we don't want to fight against any parties, including the police and so on. And this is a bit powerless, I think.
This latest action comes a day after Hong Kong's chief executive, Siwa Leung, had said he's ready to restart talks with student leaders as early as next week. However, he stressed he's in no position to offer concessions to meet the demands for fully free elections in the territory.
And finally, Apple has officially unveiled its new line of iPads, claiming the title of the world's thinnest tablet on the market. And these events always create a buzz in the tech industry, but some say they were left a little underwhelmed this time around.
Well, there wasn't any big surprises at this year's pre-holiday season event, and most of that was due to a series of online leaks. Apple launched the iPad Air 2 and the iPad Mini 3 on Thursday at its headquarters in California. The larger iPad is now just 6 millimeters thick, with both now featuring the Touch ID fingerprint sensor, just like the newer iPhones. The U.S. tech giant also released a new iMac computer with a super high-resolution 5K Retina display. Looking ahead, analysts say Apple may have trouble holding the attention of tablet consumers.
Incremental improvements. You know, the real problem with Apple and iPad, and in terms of slowing growth or less growth than what we would have expected maybe a year ago, is twofold. First, the iPad, I think customers are holding on to the ones that they've already bought longer than anticipated. And then secondly has been the rise of the large screen phone, that customers that hold a 5-inch phone don't necessarily need or want to pay for a 7-inch tablet.
Tablet sales are set to rise only 11% this year, according to tech research firm Gartner, compared to 55% last year, even as smartphone sales continue to soar. Despite still being the best-selling brand in the tablet space, Apple's global market share has been declining amid growing competition from China's Lenovo and Taiwan's Asus. Chery?
That's definitely a strong Chinese presence there in the tablet PC market as well. Thanks so much, Paul, for those stories. Great stuff, and we'll see you back here in just about 2 hours.
Hope your week is coming along well. I'm Kim Bo-kyung with the weather updates. Those of you making plans for the weekend should consider checking out the coloring of leaves, which will reach its peak this weekend at Mount Seorak and Mount Ode. At the moment, we are under fairly clear skies due to a high pressure system from the West Sea, and it looks like more of this late autumn weather is in store over the weekend. Tomorrow's morning lows will jump about 5 degrees compared to today before reaching into the low to mid 20s in the afternoon. But keep in mind that clouds will begin to roll in on Sunday, leading to nationwide showers on Monday and Tuesday. On to Saturday's readings. Seoul reaches 22, Daegu and Gwangju 24, Busan 23. On to other regions. Daejeon hits 22, Dokdo makes it to 20, and Mount Kumgang 12. That'll do it for now. Hope you have a wonderful Friday evening. I'll be back with more after 10.
Thank you very much, Bo-kyung, and that will do it for this edition of ARIRANG News. Thanks for watching.